Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everyone. Some of us are responsible for leading a team. What is a leader? We've talked about that before. Today, we're going to look at modeling, setting the example, leading by example. And we're going to get examples of just that from a gentleman that coaches people all the time, helps them with their leadership skills. He is a Marshall Goldsmith certified executive coach and founder of Coaching for Relevance. Mr. Randy Swaim is back on the program. How are you?
Good. Doing great. Looking forward to it. Glad to see you again.
You too. Yeah. A lot of times you give us clear pictures of what leadership is, what we should be doing. It's almost as if you're giving examples. Today, it seems like we're going to talk about this thing called modeling, where true examples, you literally have examples to show us of what somebody should be doing or how leadership should take place.
And how you really model it and inspire it in the people that are working with you. And when you talk about, in today's world, and I think you know this, Steve, today, but so often in today's world, people have this mindset that the way I, develop my people is I just kind of point fingers and I tell them what to do, and they better just shut off the brain and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. If you do that, you're not leading and you're not developing them. What you're doing is you're throwing them into the ditch. And if that's the extent of what you're doing, you're not really preparing you and your team members for radical results, possibly. And so it's just something to think about that. And I have one example that I mentioned to you that I'll share with you here in just a few. But it's a key example that so often people don't really understand, and they don't really kind of sense that. Because so many people, if you think about it, in today's world, not everybody, I'm not saying everybody, but many people in today's world, their entire focus is on themselves. And they want to highlight themselves. They want to talk about themselves. And you know what? That's not how you get it done. And I think you may remember that one gentleman that I've known for a long time has said that, and what I'll share is this example today is one example of what I'm talking about. He was actually in the class and saw this, but one of the things that he said is he's the guy that talked to me, and he said, "Randy, I got to tell you something." He said, "I have learned so much from you, but I have not learned one. It's not from any one thing you've ever told me. It's from what I see in you and what I see modeled by you." He said, "I have learned so much from that, from just being aware of it." And you may remember this, Steve, that one of the finest leaders I've ever worked with was Richard B. Myers, who was a chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for 5 years, for I think 4 years. But he was also my squadron commander at the 335th Chiefs when he was a lieutenant colonel back in the 1980s. And but you may remember that I learned so much from him, and I was so developed by a lot of stuff with him, but not because of anything he ever told me, but because of how I observed him do what he did and connecting with the squadron mates and leading in the way that he did. And but that's a little bit of this picture that it expands in sort of this one aspect of.
So that one gentleman that you mentioned, he picked up on your modeling and how you do things back in the day, in the squadron back in the 80s. What are some of the key things that you remember taking away from him?
Well, from Richard, from Colonel Myers at the time, I'll be ethical with that kind of thing, but he was, not specific examples, but what I did notice on an ongoing day-to-day basis with him was how he interacted with his people. it wasn't just coming up and pointing fingers and dictating to them and that kind of thing, but it was, in some cases, it was asking them right questions. It was kind of having a good conversation with people and all that,
Mm.
and things of that. But it was how he interacted with his people and created, if you think about it, when you talk about your team and you're trying to create a oneness in synergy, and this example that I'll give you here in a couple of minutes, is one example of that too. But that doesn't happen because you're dictating to them and trying to tell them about synergy and saying, you better do this. We got to have this. And that's not being a leader. When they experience that from what you're doing, that can change that part of the spirit in your team, because they see and experience the value of it and the real success of it. And so I learned so much from and I flew with him a few times, kind of thing. And the
Wow.
way he interacted with us, he and I, as we were in the F4 flying kind of thing, was huge. And it was just very different. And it was, there, and I think I shared with you this one time where the squadron was being tested. It was the 335th Chief Squadron, and that's a squadron that is very well known historically, because in World War I, sometimes you see pictures of the open cockpit biplanes in World War I that had the Chief's head emblem on the side. Well, guess what? That's what became the 335th Chiefs
Wow.
down the road, and that's the squadron that I was in for a while. And Colonel
Hmm.
Myers at the time, he's General Myers now, but I mean retired General Myers now, but he um, but like I said, just with what I've experienced from him,
Hmm.
and one of the things is they wanted to, they had the Chiefs had an awesome reputation, and they wanted to kind of really sort of test that one time, and so they had an exercise that was only for us, not everybody else in the wing, and when they did, they took Colonel Myers at the time and brought him up to the a command post. And when they walked in, they said, "Have a seat, gentlemen. You're going to sit this one out," because they wanted to see how we would perform when our leadership was not there, and it blew them away. We
Hmm.
represented kind of a pretend warfare for about 4 days, kind of thing. And at the end of the week, when they came in for kind of a debrief on it, the comments they made were just amazing in terms of possible, because of what they experienced and how we performed, even though he wasn't there. And the bottom line is, we had a good deputy commander, but the fact is, Colonel Myers had developed people so well that when he's not there, we could knock the socks off the results and really soar to heights that were unexpected. And that, just kind of, I got a chance to see and experience with Colonel Myers when he did that. And it did, and I think I shared this one time before, and I think it was 2001. I was driving my car to the car wash, and I heard on the radio that an Air Force general has just been selected as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And I went, "Oh, really? Cool." And then they said, "General Richard B. Myers." And I about crashed my car because I was like, "Wow, yeah," kind of thing and all that kind of stuff. But it was just kind of humorous and stuff. But he has been so amazing, and I've learned so much from him. But realize, when you're talking about leading your team, it's not about you dictating and controlling and having them shut their brains off and things like that. So it's just
Hmm.
um, something today. And this is just one little example of kind of what I'm talking about when I give you this example, and I'll share just briefly with how that is sometimes in today's world distorted.
Before
And
you
so,
jump into that, the one thing
yeah,
that rings true here
uh-huh,
with the gentleman who said that you made a huge difference in his life, and just from him observing you, and same
yeah,
thing with retired General Myers, is
hmm,
the notion that people don't always remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel.
They
And
remember the experience. Yes,
yeah, and that seems to
absolutely.
where it is. You can't recount word for word of Mr. Myers what he said, but your mind goes back there, and the feeling that you had of his competency, his class, his diplomacy, how he
Yeah,
took care of people, how he made you feel like you mattered, even though he's up there in the ranks and whatever.
yeah. And you know what? Part of leadership, and this is what a lot of people don't understand today, because so many people think that leadership is just about me telling you what to do. You shut off and you go do what I tell you to do, that kind of thing. But you got to realize that with what you just said, people remember what you did. But here's the thing, they also experience and remember how they felt,
Mm,
how they were changed
mm,
because of the experience.
mm.
And by the way, you know what? That's somebody I'll work for any day of the week. And you know what? When you're a leader and you make it so that your people experience that with you, boy, you're getting some amazing things happening.
I'm getting a
And that's
download in my mind right now, and I
uh huh.
think we should pause for five
Okay,
seconds and
sure.
let everybody think of people that they have engaged with in their lives, maybe on a
Mm-hmm.
leadership level, and what they felt.
Mm-hmm.
A lot is coming back in my mind, and
Yeah.
I see pictures of faces, how I felt. I'm gonna be honest, worked with people over the years. They were full of BS.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm left with, and it's unfortunate. Even if I deal with them again, and one
Mm-hmm.
in particular on a different level, in my mind, it's always like the yellow lights, meep, 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 going off. Like
Yep.
you're not the best leader and not the most trustworthy for a number
Mm-hmm.
of different validated reasons, even from others, not just me. Things that I've
Yeah.
heard that
Yeah.
backed up what, oh, really? I'm not surprised you're telling me that because
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. But then there's others where you just feel this feeling of, wow, good person. Good. They really
Yeah.
care. And they care about how you care about the organization.
About the organization, the mission, and them themselves. And you know what? That is true leadership, and that's a key aspect of this picture that I'll share. And it's kind of a little bit of a short picture, but I'll be glad to share it if you're ready.
Please.
And
Absolutely.
it's I will tell you, I'm not bringing any religion into it or whatever. What it did is it happened in a church Sunday school, adult Sunday school class that our assistant pastor was teaching. But what it did is we went in this one morning, and we're all of us are sitting in there as he's starting the class, but we have two older people in the class. One is the leader of the church, but they were sitting at a table across the classroom, across the room with me. And but what I noticed is, right as he was getting ready to start the class, the gentleman started coughing a lot, kind of thing. And he said, what he ended up doing just as the class started is he stood up, and as he was coughing, he walked out of the room and stuff. And what's amazing is the teacher started kind of going into the class a little bit. But about, probably 3 or 4 minutes after he started the class, I saw his wife across the room here, and she was doing this. She was going, and I could tell she was looking out the door. And in my mind, because of my awareness of her, and because of the awareness of the situation, I realized what she was doing is trying to get a sense of, was everything okay?
Mm.
Now, most people in a dysfunctional, narcissistic way today would point fingers and say, "Hey, you need to go find out. Here, go." They'd interrupt the class. They'd, distract her and say, "Go look at him." You know what I did? I went like this. I kind of left my book right where it was. I stood up and I very quietly just walked out of the room. And I walked out, and on the sidewalk right outside of the main entry, this guy was walking back and forth, and he was still coughing just a little bit. And I walked over to him and had just a short, literally about a 40-second thing. I said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And he went, he said, "You know what?" He said, "I'm okay." He said, I'm just kind of getting over this little bit of a cough here. He said, but I'm okay. And I said, are you sure? He said, yeah, I am. I said, well, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, do what you need to do, and we'll see you here in just a little bit. He said, okay. And there were one or two other people out there. So I walked back in, but when I walked back into the classroom, here's what I did. I didn't say anything. I didn't look necessarily, but as I walked in the door, I looked across at her as I was walking back towards my table, which is just right over there kind of thing.
Sure.
And she was looking at me as I walked in. And all I did is I went like this and I gave a thumbs up like this. I didn't say a word, but I looked at her and I gave a thumbs up right in front of my stomach here.
Wow.
And she sort of smiled a little bit and I sat down. Well, guess what? About 10 or 12 minutes into the class, I saw her looking out the door again. And so what I did is I stood up and I walked back out again. And this time I saw him sitting in a pew in the very back of the church sanctuary there. And so I walked in and and he wasn't coughing anymore. But I asked him, I said, you okay? And he said, you know what? Thank you, Randy. He said, yeah, I am. I'm okay. I'm just kind of resting so I don't interrupt anything or whatever. I said, okay. Guess what? I walked back into the class and she saw me walk in and I went like this again. And I sat down and that was it. Not one word was said. No interruption was done. But what was amazing is that after the Sunday school class was over and everybody's kind of going into the church and things like that, sanctuary and all, I was sort of being an usher and I just inadvertently glanced over kind of where she was sitting, not intentionally, but just looking around, making sure everybody's okay. And she was sitting over where, they were sitting and she was going like this. And she was motioning me to come over. And I went, I hope there's nothing. And I walked over and I walked right up to her and she just looked at me. And the thing that she said, and this is huge of kind of what we're talking about. The thing that she said is she looked at me. She said, Randy, thank you so much for what you did in the Sunday school class. I said, you know what, my sister, I said, it's my pleasure. And, I kind of held my hand up and she gave me a high five kind of thing. And of course her husband was okay and he's still good, kind of thing. But she actually came over and expressed real appreciation for just how I did. And notice I didn't say a word. I didn't control things. I didn't interrupt things. I didn't distract things. But I met a need that she had in such a way that she could feel, oh, thank you, kind of thing, and not be distracted and everything.
Sure.
But you know what? That's sort of modeling true leadership in a lot of ways.
You took action. You took
yes,
action.
It is.
And
yeah.
Imagine how that made him feel that somebody cared enough, even just to walk outside. Hey, doing all right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't do these things or shouldn't for ourselves.
That's right.
But Randy, how did it make you feel?
You know what? For me, because I understand the real aspect of leadership, and what I realized is that I met what she needed there. And I just, without saying a word or interrupting anything, I was able to, get some clarity within her mind and her vision that everything was okay. And
it got to make you feel good, though. Just that. Yeah. Just knowing that you went out, you made sure it was okay. I can remember times I was in the supermarket and a woman was in a scooter and she was reaching into the frozen food section. I know she was kind of struggling. Yep. I jumped over 5 different displays. Let me get there as fast as I can because I wanted to help her. I still remember the moment. I could tell you the store. You go to different stores, right? I could tell you where it was. And just, I didn't do it for me. But then I realized, that felt good, and I even said, whatever you need, I'll follow you around. I'm not in no rush. She goes, I'm fine. I got it. I'm just trying to reach, the frozen piece up there. But it just does something to you. It does.
It does, because what you're doing is you're making a difference. And here's the key. When you're talking about real leadership, it's not all about yourself. It's not all about trying to get a pat on the back from other people there. It's about gaining this heartfelt sense of what I really was able to contribute and the difference that I was able to make. And guess what? When that in here is experiencing the value of that, wow. And you know what? Doesn't mean people have to come over here and pat you on the back because of what you did. And it's not about you taking a whole bunch of credit for just doing that at the moment
Sure.
and everybody calling attention to you. No, it's helping them.
Mm.
And that is huge with what you said. And just as a real simple thing, you'd be surprised at how, one of the things that just comes from the gentleman aspect that's been a lot of my life. Whenever I see a lady coming up to a store or something like that, I always hold the door for them, kind of thing.
Sure.
And just a real simple little thing. But it is amazing the thank you that I get and the sort of the look in their eyes when they experience that.
Yeah.
And all I ever say, I don't say anything else. All I ever say is, "Have a great one," kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, but it really, when you talk about leadership, if all you're trying to do is dictate and control and bring all the attention to yourself, and maybe get them laughing or something, so they shut their brain off and just capitulate to what you're saying or whatever, which unfortunately is what a lot of people do today. If that's what you're doing, you are not leading. You are not leading. When you are connecting with your people in such a way that they want to be connected with you. And if you think about it, that's a concept of real synergy. You can sit here and dictate to people and just tell them what to do and shut their brains off. That's not synergy. That's just you trying to control stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But when you create people and you interact with them in such a way that they want that synergy to be there, guess what? They're going to start treating you the same way in a positive way. And that's where real oneness and synergy happens. And it's a key aspect of how leaders have to be able to model that and really do it.
Memories coming back. The leader that I mentioned before, that was kind of everything they did was really for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
As you're speaking, Randy, the memories come back, and this is years ago, but the memories come back of feeling like you're ordered around.
Mm-hmm.
And that it was kind of like, that person wanted you to feel that, and always said, I want you to feel like you're personally vested. And that's how we speak, you put your signature on it. No, you're telling me what to do, which is fine.
That's right.
But it's how you do it.
That's right.
And it wasn't
That's
genuine.
right.
It wasn't genuine. You helping that gentleman, at Sunday school, it was genuine. Everybody knows it. Everybody saw it. You were just being kind. And I believe that's by and large what's missing from today. We're just not kind. Why?
You know what?
Maybe you're afraid to. Maybe we're afraid to be kind. How?
Well, it's part of the narcissistic control aspects that exist in so much of our world today. People just want to shut your brain off, and they just want you to be afraid to not just shut your brain off and capitulate to what they tell you. And you know what? That's not leadership. Yeah. And it's are there times where you got to really kind of kind of choose a direction for your team? Yeah, there is. But how you do that and the extent to which you take it, you can do that and still bring in their synergy and oneness and desire to be a part of this with you, kind of thing. And that is created a lot differently than most people realize.
A lot of science, a lot of research, a lot of studying goes into all of this. Yep. You got it. Coachingforrelevance.com. I know Randy well. He's not a salesman. He's not like high-level pitch or anything like that.
That's right.
Regular, nice guy. Reach out to him. He is kind. And
thank you.
Start the conversation and see where that can lead. Maybe a relationship that will change your life and, most importantly, change the life of others, the others being the people that you lead. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. And I'll just share one thing with you. It sounds like that Hollywood movie documentary about my life and journey, which brings a lot of this out, kind of thing, in examples of stuff. It sounds like it's getting very close to being having the contract signed and being marketed out there. So just for people that are just interested, it's just sort of a galaxy whiz.
Very exciting. Wow.
Cool, man. Cool.
It is a story that needs to be told.
Thank you much. Appreciate it. I'm always an honor to be here with you.
And likewise. Thanks a lot, Randy. We will be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.